moments where he will just take it past the man and shoot. You know, he will combine brilliantly and seamlessly, and he's one of these players that had so much potential, especially playing for RB Leipzig. Steve usually looked at as one of the best, coming all the way from France. And I guess this has been a prolonged theme of his career, you know, failing at the likes of Chelsea before making this move to AC Milan. But let's talk hope for now. Let's talk about the hopes of what's been going on in the strikers' stratosphere this season, because there's a couple ones that I've been keeping my eye on. One of them being Esposito. Esposito of Inter. You know, despite not having the numbers, when I've watched Despacito, I'm thinking of a classic striker. Yeah, this celebration. Okay, let's go. He is an anchor that you can actually build this Inter Milan side around. And despite not having the output of a Lautaro Martinez, he has the potential to do so. I've watched a couple games of him, and that's enough for me. You know, I just need to see aerial ability, strength on the ball, the ability to turn and shoot. He has that. He's looking like more of these classic number 9 archetypes. And I think if Inter Milan really focus on him, of course they've got the likes of Marcus Thuram as well, who's also brilliant at doing this kind of similar job. But Esposito, way under. Like, he featured in the game against Lecce this season and scored the winner, which was a 1-0 win. And it wasn't a 4-0 win, he scored the last goal in the game, topped it off. He was the clinical piece in the game to get them over the line, and that's what I like to see, especially from a younger striker. With him being 20 years old and getting 3 goals and 3 assists in 7 games that he started. He's featured in like 20 games, but 7 games he's actually started. He's got 3 goals, 3 assists. He's doing this thing slowly, you know. 20 years of age. This is a striker that can grow within this club or make a move somewhere else and do his thing. I don't want him to end up like Belotti, yeah? Belotti. I think Esposito was on loan at Spezia for a couple seasons. Spezia, I don't know how to pronounce it. He scored like 20-something goals in like 60 appearances. But he is someone that was brought up through Inter, you know, through and through. So we need to see some success from an Esposito. But another striker that's kind of finally getting his feet together is Benjamin Sesko for Manchester United, who the other day scored in a 3-2 win against Fulham, and he scored the winner. And this goal, when I was watching this, yeah, Benjamin Sesko receives the ball after Bruno Fernandes does a bit of individual brilliance. You know, a dummy, then a ball into the box to Benjamin Sesko. Sesko takes a touch, and I'm thinking, wait, that touch is way too heavy. But no, back to goal, hands, and shoots, and the ball goes top corner. You know how gassed I was to see that? That is a classic finish, and a finish that I need to see more often from a Benjamin Sesko. He's not the type of player or the type of striker that I was assuming that could score goals like that, but he did, and that's what I want to see. You don't even need to look at the goal as a striker. If you're a pure striker, you don't need to know where the goal is. You should be able to shoot, and you should be able to target every single time. And he did it right then. He didn't even have to glance up. He just turned, shot, and finished, won the game. And that's what I want to see from Benjamin Sesko. Not all these random clips of him dunking the ball. I don't care about you being able to jump that high and dunk the ball, bro. Score goals. He was also involved in Manchester United's win against Arsenal or their game against Burnley this season. And he's finally showing the talent that Manchester United brought him in to show. And talking about a Manchester United striker, let's talk about Rasmus Højlund. Since joining Napoli, he's kind of had a remontada. You know, he's going through this second spell of brilliance, especially coming to Manchester United from, you know, Atalanta. He already had made a name for himself in Serie A. Then he's failed at Manchester United, gone back to Italy, and picking up a few numbers here and there, but a couple big performances. Scored against Chelsea the other day, and you can just see that there's promise still available for him. You know, the bar's not done yet. The potential is growing. Højlund could be another striker that we look at in a couple of years and say, you know what, he could make a move back to the Prem and do his thing. And I think the final striker that I really need to talk about, that for some reason, well, we know the reason, he plays in the Turkish league. Yeah, he plays in the Turkish league, one of the most disrespected leagues in world football. Victor Osimhen is a world-class striker. I don't care what anyone says, and he might miss opportunities here and there, but he is world class. Playing for Galatasaray this season, he's got 8 goals and 1 assist in like 14 games that he started. But when he's played in Europe, he showed out. He even played in AFCON, he was amazing. Like, I know that there was a couple moments where he was dropping and had arguments with the likes of Ademola Lookman. But there was moments where he scored goals that you didn't really think that he would score. But whenever I watch Victor Osimhen display, you're seeing misses. You know, you're seeing big chances get missed. You're seeing erratic movements, energy, pacing behind, him shrugging off defenders, just always being involved in every single attack, flying, just jumping. Bro, Victor Osimhen, he is a number 9. Like, he can make an impact at a big club, I swear. And even in games that he's losing, you know, he will still be energetic. He will still be about, put his body about. Galatasaray lost the other day 2-0 to Manchester City in the Champions League. And if you watch the game back and you watch moments from this game, Osimhen had multiple opportunities, but there were half chances where the ball's bounced and he's shot and it's, you know, get parried by Donnarumma. There's been multiple opportunities in this game. He was causing problems for this Manchester City defence, and maybe it's because I think Mark Gay wasn't playing in the game, but still, he is occupying defenders. It doesn't matter what team he plays against, he will always occupy the centre-backs. With his movement, his erratic play style is what a lot of football teams need right now. Where if a striker can occupy 2 centre-backs, then that means that the wingers get so many more opportunities. But Osimhen doesn't really get them chances because he's not surrounded by world-class wingers when he plays for Galatasaray. They're decent wingers, but he hasn't got, imagine him, you know, in a Chelsea squad right now, especially imagine an erratic striker for Chelsea. Then you've got a Neto, or you've got a Jamie Gittins on the side that are causing problems, or even put him out at Manchester City. You can get numbers like Haaland. I'm telling you, he's that player. He just doesn't really get respected because he misses big chances. The more chances you give this guy, eventually he will score. You've seen it this season. With a hat-trick against Ajax before going to AFCON eventually, he scored goals there too. But you know what? Again, there's another striker with a lot of questions on his head because of inconsistent play and a lot of big games that he's not scored in. So people really look at the goals. But a lot of these strikers, they have performances, but they don't put the goals in when it's really mattered. And I think that's where we need to draw the line on this whole discussion about strikers in football right now, or the other strikers in football right now. Now, of course, you guys can comment your favourite strikers in football right now, but we won't make another discussion until, you know, all these strikers come into fruition. Maybe we'll do wingers next. Of course, hopefully you guys enjoyed me just rambling on about some of my favourite other strikers in football. Your favourite? So, you know, this is Jules 101, Coutinho, talking about strikers in football. His first full season in English football has been a complete masterclass in chance creation. The graduate made a move to Manchester City on a 5-year deal, and with the fee widely reported to be around 36 to 40 million euros, this has been an absolute steal of a signing, or one of the best signings of the season. He now is Manchester City's hub of creative control. And for me, this guy is one of the only true ballers, you know, in the Premier League right now, that's showing flair, game in and game out. You watch this guy and you're instantly taken back to the good old days. You know, the days where players didn't even care about tactics, they were just doing what they want. You know, I'm going to just take the ball past you, do a little Rabona. I'm going to just skin you, egg you, you know, put the ball through your legs twice. It doesn't matter if the pass was on before the nutmeg. I'm going to nutmeg you and then the pass. So far this season, he's sitting on 3 goals and 7 assists in the Premier League so far, having played 20 games but not started in all of them. I think it's that point that makes this guy so disgusting as a player, you know. You don't want him coming up against your team because he's just constantly creating chances whenever he's on the pitch. And with having 5.54 expected assists in just over 1,000 minutes, that is just, world-class metrics. It's not like he's playing every single game, full 90s. In the small minutes that he's getting, he's putting passes into place where people should be scoring and people are scoring. With 34 chances created, 14 big chances created, and 28 successful dribbles. He's also shown that he can deliver in the decisive moments this season so far for Manchester City, like scoring in the Carabao Cup quarter-final and also the semi-final too. A game winner against Nottingham Forest in the Premier League, and also, a couple goals in the Champions League too. Now, it's not like Cherki arrived at Manchester City, this unknown player that we didn't think would do anything. He arrived with reputation. Making this move to Manchester City, he was known as a high-ceiling playmaker in football. A production engine coming from the French league that created chances constantly and also was a flair merchant. He could ridicule you but also put a fine ball into the striker for him to score. And after scoring on his league debut against Wolves, it seemed like, his luck had ran out and Manchester City hadn't really fulfilled a position that they needed to fulfill for so long, because he would get a thigh injury. But during those 2 months that this guy was, not in the team, not starting football, it was like this guy was in the hyperbolic time chamber, something like Dragon Ball Z. He was, shredding weight, getting lean, and just becoming the ultimate sort of Manchester City player that they needed. A more dynamic version of himself had been evolved, and he had gone through a metamorphosis. This guy came back into this Manchester City side looking completely different and showing, pace in areas. He could just take you right, take you inside, and leave you on the floor. He was moving mad. And since being kind of reintegrated into this Manchester City side, he's pairing up with the likes of, a newly formed Semenyo and an Erling Haaland up top, keeping the likes of Phil Foden out of the team. And even when Phil Foden starts, you can see the difference between these two creative midfielders, with one playing with confidence and the other kind of in his shell. Like, Ryan Cherki is starting to define how Manchester City are playing in, this season, especially in a time where they're going through some sort of transition in Guardiola's style of play. He can just receive the ball and break the lines by himself, and he's done it multiple times. His ability to also receive the ball and turn on it is also something that you don't see in a lot of footballers, let alone midfielders and number 10s in the game right now. It's a special trait that sets you apart from other footballers, and he is displaying it week in and week out against every single Premier League team that I've seen him go up against. And there's been various occasions where Cherki has shown this 5-star quality, even when playing in the same lineup as a Phil Foden. He's been able to drift off into the right-hand side, doing a little bit of magic, a Roboto ball into the box, and Phil Foden's head the ball in. And I think it's this unpredictability that he shows that's so different to a lot of our favourite players in the Premier League and football right now. Not a lot of them have this, bag that they can just go into and pick out any random skill to get around the defender and also bamboozle them in a way, sending them one direction while you're on to the next. And even just recently, in Manchester City's Champions League game against Galatasaray, Cherki was just running the entire show. Whilst also scoring in the game, this guy was dictating the entire tempo. And just think about how his numbers and his overall season would look if he didn't have that injury at the start of it. Because it was the opening day of the Premier League on the 16th of August 2025. And in the game where he would make his debut off the bench and score, everyone knew that this was the real deal. But then that injury hit and he goes down. After that game, he would miss out on Premier League action until the 18th of October. And then eventually he would find his flow. By the 2nd of November, he was already, impacting this side. Getting 2 assists in a 3-1 win against Bournemouth. Then against Sunderland, another 2 assists. Then a goal and assist against Nottingham Forest. A goal against Tottenham, a goal against Brentford in the Carabao Cup, another one against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. And again, with a player like this, once he finds his stride and he finds his flow, the confidence starts to ooze off of him, like this sort of aura around him when he goes into games. And that's where you've seen these highlights where he's, getting the ball, smiling and just nutmegging a man before taking a lovely diagonal ball to the opposite wing. He's done that multiple times. He can, get and pull you out of tight situations. He's showing that he is honestly the only real number 10 in football. Yet he doesn't just play number 10 for Manchester City, he also floats out on the right hand side. I remember in Manchester City's game against Tottenham this season, he was just, full flow. I think it was the entirety of either the first half or the second half. It was just Cherki. He was just taking over. that right-hand side, leaving Tottenham defenders on the floor, going one way. It was reminding me of, the days of watching Samir Nasri at Arsenal, where he would just do a fake shot and leave an entire defense on the floor. Ryan Cherki is 22 years old and he has the potential to be special. And it's not just me saying that. Earlier on, I talked about his numbers, and the numbers show it too. I mean, it's his first season with Manchester City, and he's already, top of creation outcomes for the entire side, meaning he is the player in the entire squad that has created the most. Top for league assists, top for expected assists, and also top for chances created. And reminder, he's not competing, in these stat categories with bums. He's competing with other, international players. Phil Foden, Tijani Reinders, guys that were leading, this Manchester City side. Tijani Reinders, who was leading AC Milan in creation. But no, it's Cherki, who sometimes doesn't even play the games fully. He comes off the bench and still will make more of an impact than the entirety of their midfield. Like, even in one of Manchester City's biggest games this season, Cherki was only playing 29 minutes against Liverpool and still made impact, and even nearly got the goal that was eventually ruled out and gave, Dominic Szoboszlai a red card. But in that game, the moments, 29 minutes still, he was able to create a chance. He was able to do and, do things that the other players that were on the pitch couldn't do. Now, Cherki entered the Lyon Academy graduate scheme and eventually would see success in the pipeline. Boasting 185 appearances for his boyhood club, he showed before coming to Manchester City as a youngster that he already had the experience and capabilities to do it on a bigger stage. And with his senior debut coming in October of 2019, followed up by his first goal for the club in 2020, he would become Lyon's youngest ever goal scorer. He was also the youngest ever player to appear in the Champions League semi-final when Lyon brought him on against Bayern Munich back in 2020. And despite losing the tie not really affecting, he would see himself be in and out of this Lyon side in the upcoming years. And up until the 2024-25 season, you really saw, his potential kind of become actuality and his actual skill. During that season, he would get 12 goals and 20 assists in all competitions, showing a level of output that attracted clubs like Manchester City to really, peak their ears at a youngster that was balling out in a different country. And as well as affecting Ligue 1 games, he would affect the bigger games in that league season. When they were playing in the likes of the Europa League against Rangers, I remember watching that game and seeing Cherki not really knowing who he was, but after the game, researching and finding out who he was. And after 3 seasons of over 35 games in all competitions for Lyon, eventually Manchester City swooped in for a fee that, honestly, looking back in 5 years from now, will be one of the biggest bargains in football history. Well, I mean, that's the trajectory that it looks like he's about to go on, because he's showing that he can be the guy that revives the position of a number 10. And for context, Ryan Cherki is also 22 years of age. 22, born in 2003. And while still being so young, he performs like a dominant superstar. Someone that's been at Manchester City for a bunch of years. Someone who can be put up there as one of the best players in his age category. Don't forget, he's in the same age group as the likes of Jude Bellingham, Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala. Ryan Cherki is there too. And with this season being far from over, it could be him in these decisive moments that take Manchester City to compete up there with Arsenal for getting this Premier League. It's a race that is going down to the wire right now. And as we're midway through February, talking about Ryan Cherki is not the only thing on people's mind. It's, will he start 90 minutes week in and week out for Manchester City in this run of games that they need guys like Cherki to create the chances to go on this winning streak, to compete with Arsenal for this title? What will happen at the end of the season? And is this just a purple patch for Ryan Cherki, or is this the start of a dynasty for Manchester City? A dynasty that is being led by a North African descendant and French international, Ryan Cherki. Will he be the creative hub for France in the World Cup this season, or will he be left out of the starting 11 come the World Cup? Let's find out. And also, you guys leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and let me know if there's any other players that we need to talk about like this one. This is kind of the format now. We're just going to start talking about some of my favourite players in football and also some other stuff on this channel. But yeah, you guys suggest me videos, get active in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Now, the other day I was asked a question: who are the most expensive football players in the world right now? And according to Transfermarkt, it's actually Erling Haaland and Vinicius Jr., who are both joint top with a value of 200 million euros. So that's not my problem. My problem is looking down the rest of this list. I mean, according to this site, Martin Ødegaard is the 14th most expensive footballer in the world. No, I'm not making a big deal out of this because Martin Ødegaard is some sort of scrub of footballer, but still, 14th most expensive player in the entire world used to be actual world-class players. And I think me looking at this table the other day and seeing all these names, all these values, just put me into some sort of existential crisis. Because right now we are going through a shift in football and nobody has really got the grips with it. And of course I can point out the obvious, like Messi's playing in the Burger League and Ronaldo is playing in the Halal Burger League. But still, it's not just because the two GOATs have pretty much one foot out the door when it comes to playing football in general. It's the global landscape of the game is completely changed. At this table of the most expensive footballers in the game right now, it's clear to see that we are officially in a new era of football. We are no longer seeing any great names of the past. The Suarez's, the Ibras, Messi's gone, Ronaldo's gone, Neymar's just joined Santos after absolutely robbing Al Hilal. Al Hilal might as well start a new project. Get Zion, that baby in. They need him. Probably have more of an impact than Neymar did for their club. The entire golden era of Barcelona has completely faded out of the game. It's just retired. Even the likes of De Bruyne from Manchester City looks like he's heading out of that door next season. Right now, all the players that dominated for the last decade are completely fading out of the game, giving way to a new generation of talent. From Erling Haaland's robotic efficiency to Jude Bellingham's midfield mastery, football is now entering a new golden age where we actually have to accept that these guys are the new era. You know, as much as we think that there's a lot, just put things together across them and hope for the best. And let's of course start by talking about the individual that is at the top this table, Erling Haaland. Now, despite having a slow season with Manchester City this year, there is no doubt that Erling Haaland is the best striker in football right now. Of course, the brilliance of